rents have definitely softened some. I think it's seasonality, but I also think it's the ripple effect of, hey, all these Class A's are giving away a lot of like really good concessions. That has a trickle down effect to Class B properties and Class C properties.
The biggest thorn in my side this year has been unplanned lease breaks. That hits the bottom line pretty hard because, that is a vacancy cost. Anytime anyone leaves, the home just needs, a little bit of TLC, and that adds up.
So it'll be interesting to see as we get into Q1, kind of how much it rebounds with seasonality. Hey, Colorado, we are here in the podcast studio to talk about the November trends for the Denver and Colorado real estate markets. We're going to go through like market trends. We're going to talk about some interesting news articles, some items that we're experiencing in the market with lease breaks, and then also talk about a deal or two. So I got a lot of great people in the studio today. So I got Troy Howe with Nova Home Loans to talk lending.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, good to have you back, Troy.
Good to be here.
Jeff White with Envision Advisors to talk about the market and how to house hack and find cash flowing deals in the Denver market.
That's what I do.
I know. That's why we have you in the seat. We got Brandon Schulten here with Keyrenter, who's been our new panelist addition to come bring the perspective of what property managers are seeing. Great to have you back, Brandon.
Great to be back. I must not have screwed it up too bad the first time.
No, you brought great data. And last but not least is Jenny Bayless down Colorado Springs. Good afternoon, Jenny.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So you know what? We're going to start with you. What trends are you seeing in Colorado Springs down there?
Yeah, kind of the same old, same old. I know I say that every month, but it's just really not dramatic. So I see that as a good thing. Median sales price went up 2% month over month to $485,000, which is up 4% year over year from about $466 this time last year. And then on the activity side of things, total active listings went down almost 9% and sales went down 10%. And new listings went down 36% this is all month over month numbers.
Wait, new listings went down how much?
36% from October to November of this year. So pretty substantial, but that's only a 2 property difference from November of last year. So 0.2%. So it's kind of on par with November of last year's activity on that. So it's kind of interesting. Everyone seems to just be holding firm. Prices aren't really wiggling at all, and neither is activity. People aren't bringing things to market, and people aren't buying things. So it's just kind of stagnant.
So I want to go over the Denver trends now. I can pull this up because it was interesting. I actually talked off with the new listings as well, because you said you guys were down, 36%?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were down 41% month over month. And then same thing, year over year, we are just under, we're actually 1% up. So, pretty good for seasonality, but just seems like a big month-to-month drop-off. But here's the big thing that I look at, or we talked about 2 months ago, was we saw the average price drop some in Denver for that 1 month. I think that was like 2 months ago. Well, the average price went up just under 5% from $693 to $706, and the median was up 3%. But what's interesting on here is the detached averages. So, detached houses went up 2.75%, and the attached, so condos and townhomes, were down about 1%. So, we're seeing prices go up slightly on the detached, and condos and townhomes, we're seeing prices stagnate some. I mean, have you guys on, anyone out there from the lending side, broker side, PM side, have you guys felt this or noticed anything in like the condo or the detached market versus the attached market just in general this year? I've got some thoughts on them. I'm curious to you guys.
Well, yeah, I think in general, detached single-family houses usually are more desirable because who wants to buy them? That's how I look at it. So investors want to buy them for rentals. Owner-occupants want to buy them for their families. The move-up buyers that are coming from condos and townhomes and apartments, they want to get out of the shared attached housing go to detached housing. So you have the biggest buyer pool in general is usually in the single family for most metro markets. And that's the most inventory too. So it also makes sense because that's the most desirable, usually the more desirable neighborhoods in general as well. So you have stronger buyer pool, so more demand, which usually leads to higher prices, even though the supply is way more. Versus condo townhomes, it reminds them of the apartments. So most people don't want to go from like a 3-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom condo. They want to go move up. They want to go to that single family house. So that's why I think some of those trends are, and I know with lending, with HOAs and all that, it makes it a little tougher nowadays with qualifying for the loans,
especially for the
with no
condos.
HOAs.
Yeah, condos are definitely being painful, especially with the insurance.
So talk
coverage.
more about that, Troy. Like, so talk more about that.
That's been a challenge in the lending community with adequate insurance coverage for these complexes because they have to meet certain requirements for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and sometimes they don't have them properly insured. They got to have the proper reserves, and so condos just create a lot more complexity when it comes to the lending side. So,
and how has this been the last 6 months, last year?
Last year, I mean, it's always been a challenge, but what's added to it lately is the insurance thing. The insurance cost and price, obviously, as HOAs have been climbing up pretty nicely, pretty horribly.
So is it just because people have a hard time to qualify for it, or it's just like the units themselves don't qualify?
The units themselves just don't qualify.
Wow,
is what's happening.
What's that rule with the deductible? I forgot. There's like some weird thing with if it doesn't have a $10 million reserve, something.
They have to have the proper reserve and deductible.
And if they don't,
coverage.
then doesn't qualify for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't have the proper
insurance
reserve
coverage
and proper insurance coverage.
Right.
That's just a flat no-go.
It's a non-warrantable condo then.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Then you're down to like credit unions and stuff like that too.
Right. Some of the banks and
financing
credit
on them.
unions might do it, and their terms aren't going to be as favorable.
Yeah.
And FHA has always been a problem with these condo complexes. I don't know why they've all let them expire. So you have very few, or a lot less than what it used to be, FHA approved projects. So VA and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac kind of follow the same rules, but FHA, it's got to be approved by FHA to be able to do an FHA loan. So it just shortens up the buyer pool for those, and kind of plays into the numbers you were just looking at, Chris. Is the attached stuff, especially when you're talking condos, I think are going to suffer the most as far as values go. Townhomes are going to be better than condos, for sure.
Have you noticed anything on the rental side, Brandon? I mean, just on the attached versus detached, any like trends you've noticed this year?
Yeah, it's this is not a new story. I mean, we always, when the market fluctuates, condos suffer more than detached single family. Seems to be much more stable for us on the rent side. And yeah, it's some of the same. I think it's that you still have new apartments hitting the market, and so they're incentivized to get those filled up, and so it's just a real trickle down of these, especially kind of the no amenities older condos are just some of the last things that get rented. So when there's a plethora of them out there, it's just really hard to get anyone interested. So
any other data you guys want to talk about for Denver as far as like the from the MLS side? I want to keep it there because actually I feel like you guys have any specific data on there, but I was actually curious because Brandon said before you record, a data point jumped out to you, Brandon. I believe those were the quote you said. So what jumped out to you?
yeah, so I always look at the Zillow and Zumper both put out some rental data. So Zumper has like a little tab that will show you property type, and then one of them is rent by the room. So month over month change rent by the room was down 22%, which just seemed staggering. But I wondered.
Well, this was for Denver?
Yeah, for Denver. So yeah, rent by the room last month versus this month, down 22%.
Did it give you year-over-year data?
It was like pulling in no.
Okay.
It didn't have it on this particular metric. So I don't know how that compares with other things. It was showing median rent, I think, on the room by room at $845. But I was curious. This is not a world I live in. We don't manage.
I could talk about
rent
that
by the room
because I do self-managed rent by rooms, and yeah, when you hit right after mid-October and you go into like November, December are the worst possible months for rent by room, just because it's
like even worse than traditional rentals.
Yes,
okay,
because it is affordable housing. There is a big pool of renters that desire that, but they're just like normal. They are still normal type of tenants where they don't want to move when it's potentially 10 degrees out or right before Thanksgiving or right before New Year's and Christmas and all the holiday season. And people in dropping it from 845 to 800, that's because it's a smaller number. It seems like it's a larger
And the
amount.
current number was 845, so it must have come from
where I'm kind of
950
curious
or something.
where they're pulling their data too, because
I clicked, so it does have a option to pull it all up, and there was like over 350 listings or something, so it was a decent sample size.
Yeah, because rent by room, people do Craigslist, some people do Facebook Marketplace, some people do Zillow, even some people throw it on like Redfin, and they call it a 1 bedroom, but they throw in like a room, so it's not always easy to get data. But seasonality really impacts rent. Usually if I have a vacancy coming up in November, December, I just know I'm gonna have to list it $50 to $100 less for the same exact room versus spring, summer.
Okay.
Even though just because I know demand's way lower.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is, you think, just normal seasonality for a room? It's just more dramatic than traditional rentals?
Yeah. And it's like if you 800, 845 is the average room price, you drop it, 20%. I mean, I don't know if you have to go
$160.
I don't know if you do it that far. I think it depends on how desperate the person is, but with rooms, it is affordable housing. So there is a big chunk of people, but usually the way I look at it is there's like a threshold of like, okay, wait a week, drop it like $25, wait a week, $25, and then you'll usually find someone around that $50 to $100 range. Okay. I haven't gone 150 plus, so.
We'll have to I'll keep watching that one and see if it's all over the place. It may just be it's a small data set, so it's more volatile.
I mean, I would love to. Can you forward that article? I've never seen room by room rental data. It's just, I don't know if you've seen that, Jeff. I just talk to people. I'm like, okay, this is what people are renting for.
Zillow just allowed room rentals just recently. They used to ban it on their site, only normal rentals, and they just allowed rent by room rentals. Huh. So it's kind of a new thing. And then you have companies like PadSplit and other ones doing more rent by room as like, or co-living, they call it a strategy. But
well, PadSplit, they're like a membership model. They're really
they're different. Yeah, that's a whole different game or company strategy. But no, I'm not surprised on that, just because the drop off is magnified a lot more in November, December than if you wait till spring.
Sure.
Yeah, even more than normal rentals.
But good segue here, because actually we haven't released this podcast yet, but we had the CEO of PadSplit. We actually did a podcast a few weeks ago with him. Mm-hmm. And then we have roughly ballpark sometime in January to go out and do one of their PadSplit co-living property walks to see it. And we're doing property walks because we're about to kick off our portfolio analysis mastermind in January. And that's like our big annual event where we go out there, and 2 main goals. Hey, come understand how your portfolio is working. And then the second part of it is understand what options are cash flowing and make sense in the market this year. And we've got like 7 types of deals that make sense in like the higher interest rate environment. One's co-living. Another one is doing medium-term rentals, which Brandon and Keyrenter, they're kicking off a division, early next year for medium-term rentals?
Yeah, like it's already rolled out.
You're a soft launch, right?
Yeah, but really laying a lot of the groundwork to go bigger with it Q1.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this because, I mean, you manage 1,100 doors for long-term rental.
Yep.
And so I've not seen many big medium-term rental companies. It's usually been like, solopreneur type person, and those usually have a shorter life cycle and than an established corporation like you guys are. So I'm excited to learn more about that. And this podcast will be out, but we're actually walking a medium-term rental property in a few days with Keyrenter's portfolio, and we'll do probably 1 or 2 of those a quarter. So big heads up, join for the portfolio analysis mastermind, best event of the year we do, and then keep your eye out because we're doing a lot more property walks in 2025 with co-living, medium-term rental. We got some cool apartment walks coming up too. So yeah, it'll be a good way to come walk properties. You got any other data points that jumped out to you, Brandon?
Depending on where you looked, rents were just soft. I mean, when I talked to my team about it, when I looked at a couple different sources, it's just, there's not a real exciting story there saying rents are looking great or anything. So it was slow last month. It's even down a little bit more.
But is that like typical seasonality, or is it worse than typical seasonality? Because I mean, right now, this is the worst time.
Yeah, of course. We know to expect that. But it's certainly been worse than what we usually expect. it feels like a lot's come to a head.
You had talked about a property where you, I forget the location, but rents are pretty soft.
Yeah. So just one example, we rented a property in September of 2023 for $1,450, rented in a couple of weeks. This is just it's a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment in a 4-unit building, 840 square feet. So $1,450 last year. They didn't renew after a year, so we're trying to rent it again. We're down to $1,200 on the rent. Still.
When did you put it back on the market?
It's been 60 days. So we've come down quite a bit and just been surprised. It's probably the worst part of Denver. It's right there near Lowry, where that was all over the news with the gangs and that kind of thing. But so I don't know how much that's impacting it, or if it does really speak to the market at large. But yeah, I mean, across the board, it's these kind of 2-bed, 1-bath condos or small apartments, no amenities, that are just tough to rent right now.
Are you seeing showings, or like, is there just no initial interest period?
I don't know for sure. I don't have that in front of me on this one, but I think it's an overall like slow activity kind of thing.
Because I mean, I've got other investors and some deals I'm in, like, rents have definitely softened some, not quite that dramatically. That's a 20% reduction or something. But I mean, I've definitely seen rents soften up. I think it's seasonality, but I also think it's part of like, the ripple effect of, hey, all these Class A's are giving away a lot of like really good concessions. Hey, 2, 3, 4 months of free rent or free parking spaces. I mean, that has a trickle down effect to Class B properties and Class C properties. And, pretty much everyone, investors on this podcast, we're Class B and Class C investors. We're not doing the 4-unit Class A stuff. So it'll be interesting to see as we get into Q1, kind of how much it rebounds with seasonality and how much of it is maybe just like our rents can be soft for a bit.
Yeah.
Have you had any softness, Jeff, Jenny, any rent softness in your guys' portfolio?
It depends. I guess mine, personal one, I always try to find ways to optimize it and maximize it every single year, because I know I don't want to be that old landlord that's, I rented $1,000 a month and for 10 years straight, right? And never do a rent increase. So even if it's a small rent increase, so my market tenants, I try to shoot, even if they're good tenants, I want to keep them. I try to find a balance of like, okay, where's the other rents at? Am I already kind of at market? Am I above market, below market, or right at market? And then try to, if I'm below market, try to tell them like, oh, market's this. Instead of giving you market, we'll go like $100, $200 below that. So like I ask them, what do you think's fair? So then they tell me, and they almost instead of me being the bad guy saying, oh, I'm asking you for a rent increase, they convince me for the rent increase. And then they tell me what they think is fair. So I've done that with some market tenants. And then rent by rooms, I kind of keep them at, like, because of seasonality, I don't want to have vacancies in the middle of November, December. So I just keep them at what they're at. Actually, I really haven't had many rent increases with rent by room, very small, like $10, $20 a month over a couple of them, but that's it. And then Section 8, I always try to aim for the max.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know their case managers running those programs switch out a lot. So that's a whole, which we talked about before.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So yeah, across the board, I have year over year, I've gotten net. This is some of my re-optimization, a 20% year over year increase. So, and some of that was just getting out bad tenants, getting new tenants in, and re-optimizing them. So that's the difference.
Jenny, what about same question as far as like rent softness, but also you talked about you've seen a big uptick in lease breaks as well.
Yeah. So if you were to just compare like rent roll in my portfolio of this year and last year, it would probably be up just numerically, just for tenants that are a little bit below market. I haven't been increasing their rent much, $5. Just, very nominal. For planned turnovers, I've been raising it to what I perceive to be market at the turnover and have had no issues getting them re-rented. The biggest thorn in my side this year has been unplanned lease breaks. So that hits the bottom line pretty hard because, that is a vacancy cost. And there are turnover costs that anytime anyone leaves, the home just needs, a little bit of TLC, and that adds up. So I think that has been pretty significant. And all the lease breaks have thankfully gone as good as they could go. Everyone was, very cordial and turned over keys when requested to, but, there's still a pretty big financial hit each time that happens.
Have you had an uptick in evictions?
I don't have any evictions. No.
Have you had an uptick in evictions, Brandon, with, kind of like since all the laws have, kind of getting into the system now?
Yeah. For some reason, starting like this month we had more like notices posted than we've ever had for delinquent payment.
Like
on
in
rent.
History of Keyrenter?
Yeah.
And that's just more doors, or is that just like percent wise?
It was certainly as a percentage.
Okay.
I can't say I've tracked it as a percentage going back many years or whatever, but we were like, what is going on? Like way more tenants not paying rent than what we're used to. So
same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should say late payments, more than what we're used to. Which then I guess sometimes they turn into non-payments, which then turns into the, lease breaks that I was mentioning. But it's definitely been pretty systemic that people are 1 to 2.5 weeks late pretty consistently now.
Yeah, I mean, it goes on with the theme of, hey, the rent softness that we're seeing and all that. So it'll be interesting to see how things move in the new year. We've talked over the last couple months now, Jenny, about the vacancy in Colorado Springs. The other month you shared an article that had like 36% or 33%, a very, very high vacancy rate. And there's a new article out now.
Yeah, so that
I'm going to bring it up on the screen here.
Yeah.
This is the latest one, right?
I guess I don't have to pull mine up. Yeah. So, it's a KOAA article by Brett Forrest, November 25th, 2024, called Colorado Springs Apartments Offer Concessions of Up to 2 months of free rent, but prices remain elevated. The article that we spoke on a few months ago, focused around a couple of new buildings downtown. And I think that the figures reflected in this article seem to make a lot more sense, just in that it's probably citywide as opposed to just being like located on a couple of new buildings. So I think like the key, points of this article mention that that there's a lot of concessions that are going on to get these new buildings filled. That what you have highlighted right there is advertising a $2,000 Visa gift card, a couple of months of free rent, etc. But I know, Chris, you mentioned, I don't remember if you mentioned it on the podcast or just in chatting, but you said that way the owners of these buildings can keep their rent advertised as, high for probably their investors or whomever, but then they just record this as a marketing expense. So I thought that was pretty interesting to consider it that way. And then I think, the most important piece of this article, at least, in my opinion, is there's a quote a quote from Tatiana Bailey, who's an economist in town. And she stated that current vacancy rates are 6.3%, which is still lower than the record high of 11%. So I think that's important to note. It's still less than a month. So, things that could skew that, of course, are lease renewals. Obviously, that would be 0% in that case. And then, the thing that Brandon mentioned, where it takes months and months and months to fill a unit. So that, in addition to the new product that's coming on to the market. So I think it's 6% with all those competing factors, I think is pretty decent. Definitely higher than it was a couple of years ago, which was, I think, like 3% or something, maybe 4%. I can't remember quite, but definitely coming up, but still not too terrible in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, 6.3% is usually kind of around the historical average a lot of times for metros. I mean, and yeah, it's up from 2 years ago, but 36% is like catastrophic crisis mode, if it was really that. So,
Well, I mean, like you could, that's, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because that was like 1 or 2 buildings that they were posting that on. And, I just told you that I had 3 lease breaks in 1 4-plex building. So am I going to say, at one point I had a 75% vacancy, like that's astronomical. So
if you're writing a news article, that would be a great clickbait headline, Jenny.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but if we were to like smooth that out based on, the full year and across my entire portfolio, I think that we're probably still running but less than that 6.3% vacancy rate. I'll have to calculate my portfolios, but I think it's less than that. So it's however you want to spin it is kind of where I'm going from that.
I think another thing that jumped down the article is Bailey said there is still a housing shortage of 8,000 to 9,000 units. So, I mean, if there's still a huge shortage, I mean, vacancy is not going to go sky high, I don't think. And I think I'd sit over as we were talking about this. I shared that CoStar report with you, right, Jenny?
Yeah.
I think they pegged that 8 to 9% was their vacancy for what they were calculating for Colorado Springs. They were a little bit higher, but
that would probably be specific to multifamily, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be multifamily. But they were like, hey, we're having a supply glut now, but short-term high supply, but long-term, demand is very robust as well. So I think they're predicting kind of going to 2026 that this supply cut would be over and vacancy would be dropping, back to dropping down some. And then they expect rent growth to be, picking up again as well.
Yeah. The only thing I'm really curious to see how this shakes out is, I think I mentioned it in prior months, but just that the new apartments that they are building are very high rents. And, to mention what Bailey said is I do worry about whether we are building enough affordable apartments. That's kind of my sentiment as well, because there's a, large gap as to what's being built and then what people in the area can reasonably afford. So I'm curious to see how that shakes out.
Well, would it be, I agree. But to play devil's advocate a little bit, if they build all this inventory and rents are too high and people can't rent it out, free markets will just drive the rents down, right?
I don't know. I don't know how it works when you have big money at play.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
They do concessions, Jenny, so they could inflate their NOI and when they sell it in 5 years.
Yeah, it's like I think that's the classic strategy of get the people in, give away everything to get them in at a higher rent than what they really wanted to spend, but they could have gotten lower rent, but there weren't all these concessions at another place. And then it's a sticky business kind of. Nobody really wants to move. There's costs for a tenant to move, so then keep the rent at that high rate and hope it's just they kind of forget about it and stay.
So more apartment stuff, Brandon. You had talked about, and I'll bring this up too. An article in the Denver Post here earlier today called DTC Office Conversion, 9 other Colorado housing projects awarded tax credits. So can you give us a rundown of this article, Brandon?
Yeah, it just jumped out at me because this has been something I've heard about from different angles of just, we have nationwide, we have this big housing shortage. We also have this office surplus, right? Post-COVID, a lot of people working from home, all that. So you have all this empty office space, and it seems like a great idea to just turn this into residential and kind of shore up that gap there. But actually doing it is much harder than, it is in theory. These buildings weren't built for that. So there's a lot of kind of code issues. And so to this point, what I've always heard is it's not feasible. You can't make the numbers work. So what I'm seeing here is that there was these state tax credits put out there for building low income housing. And so finally we're seeing a bunch of these kind of shore up that gap such that the numbers start making sense. And they highlight this one building in the tech center. And if you scroll down, you can see the breakdown of it. They're going to do, so the units range from studios to 4 bedrooms, and they will serve those making between 30 and 70% of the area median income. So 143 income restricted apartments is what they're constructing here. So maybe this helps with shoring up some of that gap with all they're building is A class right now, and that's not really what the market needs. So yeah, they go over 10 different projects here, all around the state. So I didn't dig into each one, but there was Pueblo and some all over.
Oh, I find this fascinating because you're absolutely right. Like it seems like years ago, I was like, oh, one of the best investments would be converting office to apartments. And I researched and I was like, oh, that's way harder than it is. So a couple of things that jumped out to me in the article. So the building, it's at 4390 South Monaco near DTC. Between the federal and state, they got awarded over $4 million in tax credits. So apparently you need $4 million to make it work. And that's taking a 4-story building and those 143 units that Brandon mentioned. But it's interesting. Another quote in the article says, it's poised to be the first office to residential conversion to begin in the Denver area since the pandemic. So, I mean, 4 years now. And the 10 projects awarded tax credits for 1,169 units were chosen from 32 applicants, and they'll all receive a 4% federal tax credit along with additional state credits. And then they go through one in Pueblo, one in Denver, one in Glenwood Springs, one in Fort Collins,
and these
Colorado
are
Springs.
Big units. I mean, up to 250 plus units.
Yeah, I mean, 264 in Fort Collins. So it's all over Colorado. So it's really interesting. It's going to be fun to like watch these projects convert. And if anyone out there in our podcast ecosystem is anyone involved with these projects and we can get behind the scenes about walk a property, oh man, let us know. I would love to like learn more about this. I think these conversions are fascinating and just really be interesting, like dive in the numbers and how it all works. But I'm excited to see this, but we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, same.
All right. So talking some deals here. Not a whole lot of deals to talk about, lots of new stuff. But Jeff, you got something cooking in the pipeline for a client, right?
Yep. It is a mid-century modern. People love those types of houses because they're so cool looking. So,
your inner HGTV just
exactly.
like shined out for 3
Exactly.
seconds.
I'm like, look at this. Has big windows and architecture and angles. It's fun to talk about those ones or look at them because I don't usually see those types of properties. And there it is, they are more visually appealing on the eye. So from like a rentability point of view, I'm sure more desirable as a rental property compared to like a same like 3-bed, 2-bath place.
For sure. Yeah, we manage a handful of those and they get a premium rent.
Exactly. So this one appealed to my buyer profile is husband, wife with a child. So they wanted to do house hacking, but they wanted like their own upstairs unit. And this one had a separate entrance to the basement, egress windows, 2-bed, 1-bath right now. They still have to add a kitchen or kitchenette downstairs, but it has separate entrance all ready to go. They just have to work on that. Purchase price $550,000, seller credits $18,000, and they're going to probably use.
You max that one out, huh?
Exactly. They'll use a good chunk of that for buy down the rate, and then another piece of it for some improvements and like repairs for the kitchen downstairs. But they're really excited. Move-in ready place. Got a better deal because it's been on the market a while. And the pro of right now versus like going back to what we talked about discounts for renting on the buy side, great time to buy a property for buyers, because if you're selling right now, why is someone sell in the middle of winter? Usually that's in general the worst time to sell, but vice versa, best time to buy. And that's why you can negotiate a lot more and get a better deal if you're looking to buy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the difference on that one. So that one's kind of a unique one. And quick math there. Mortgage will be, what do they say? Estimate around 3,500-ish. They'll probably rent the basement out when it's all done for, if they make it a 3, maybe like 1,800. They might do midterm, so we'll have to talk about that. And they're just trying to cut their living costs in half and try house hacking with the family.
Can we use midterm rental as a case study with you guys?
Absolutely.
Just kind of like, it sounds like the right type of property and all that because that'd be fun just to kind of see, run some numbers and as if scenarios.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. They're open to, pretty much any strategy right now for the bottom.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right.
Yep.
Let's make that happen.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, one more thing I want to note here as we wrap up is, an exciting thing, and this came out of our portfolio analysis mastermind evolution, always going through how to optimize things. And obviously a lot of when we do our portfolio analysis sessions, the software, our content is a lot of times geared around, hey, how do you optimize it financially? Which a lot of times is moving equity out in some form or the other, or hey, I'm going to pay this off, just kind of figure out the strategy. And something that comes up a lot of times is just, is the how to operate the property better. In terms of like, we can eyeball, hey, rents look good. Or hey, that number looks like you add an extra 0 to taxes. Like, we can catch like major outliers, but we don't have the expertise to go out there and do like a deep dive into like optimizing the property from like an asset management standpoint. But there's something cool that you're leading an initiative over at Keyrenter, or your team is, I should say, Brandon, with helping people actually kind of do kind of what we do for portfolio analysis, but do that from like an asset management. Hey, how's your property operating? Because we were just talking about this last couple of weeks. Can you tell people kind of the process you'll take them through? And this is still very much in kind of like the early, we're doing a few properties through here right now to kind of fine tune out, but it's a really cool program you guys are putting together.
Yeah, totally. So it'll be an iterative process of figuring out what people really find valuable and that kind of thing. But right now what we're thinking is we'll do a rent analysis. So look at how your rents are versus market rents. We'll also do a utilities analysis because we see, that's one of the main things we see when people come to us is they're just leaving money on the table with how they're handling utilities with tenants. And sometimes there's really some room there to improve that. And it can make a significant impact to your ROI. So, and then also just with all the wave of new laws, we're not attorneys, but in a non-attorney way, we're going to do a quick check of your listing. If you have a property listed for rent and a once over of your lease, and just see if there's anything we would highlight to kind of like, hey, this may be in violation. You're leaving stuff out, stuff that maybe you can take and get advice from an attorney on updating or something. But just a quick health check there. Are you taking on unnecessary risk because you haven't done a few things? Or are you leaving some money on the table? So that's what we want to deliver for people, and doing this just as a way to provide some value to people that own rental property.
I love it. Well, I'm sending you over some property data. It's on my to-do list to be one of the guinea pigs through here. Plus to, hey, always looking for ways to improve stuff I have. So if anyone's interested out there, let us know. Like I said, we're in the early stages of, kind of fine-tuning the whole process, but probably January-ish timeframe, late January, we'll be rolling out full force to get people's portfolios optimized from a asset management and operation standpoint, and not just financial standpoint. So again, that's going to be part of like our PAM process. Just we're getting bigger and better at how do we optimize your portfolio, whether it's the operations or a new investment or changing a strategy in a property, or sometimes moving the equity from one property to the other, even if it means giving up a low interest rate once in a while, Jeff.
I don't know what you're talking about.
One on that note, right?
Those are cuss words, aren't they, Jeff? He just cussed at you.
You're no evil, Jeff. All right. Well, hey, guys, this was fun. Another great episode. Appreciate you, Jenny, Brandon, Jeff, Troy. This was a great episode with lots of data points. So can't believe it's our last one for 2024. So looking forward to doing a lot more of these, or I guess 12 more in the new year. And I know we mentioned this, but maybe in January, you guys want to do a predictions episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the enthusiasm. All right, so that's a yes for everyone, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Yes. All right, so we'll see you guys in the new year. Appreciate you guys tuning in over the air, and let us know what type of data you find valuable. And we'll spice up next month with some predictions as well. So Jenny, Brandon, Jeff, Troy, thank you. And everyone out there, thank you. If you guys have any questions, reach out to us, and we would love to help you buy or sell or optimize your current real estate portfolio. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.